what might serve as a trigger for one person might not be for another. It could be super mundane things like words, smells, um, sounds, or even the time of day, or even certain holidays.
Three, two, one, yeah!
After leaving the corporate 9-to-5 grind, I became the boss of my own spiritual business, helping others explore and navigate the human experience from insight, wisdom, and lessons learned along the way. Today, I help aspiring spiritual entrepreneurs gain the confidence to share their gifts with the world. Welcome to the Happy Healing Shop podcast. I'm your host, Trang Pham Nguyen, and each week we'll dive into incredible stories of strength, resilience, and transformation. So, if you are ready for some serious breakthroughs, laughs and tears, and stories that will inspire you, you are in the right place, my friend. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to another episode at the Happy Healing Shop podcast. Today, my guest, Kristina Dela Cruz, has navigated a path filled with challenges and obstacles, each one shaping her into the incredible and empowered person she is today. And what a healing journey she has been on. She grew up with a single mom, faced the hardships of an abusive household, and defied the odds of not only battling her way into medical school, but also making the courageous decision to leave it and change her career path. Join me as we uncover her journey and the wisdom she gained along the way. Kristina's story is one of healing, growth, and unwavering determination, showing that no matter what life throws at you, there is always hope and a path forward. Please welcome my friend, Kristina. Hey, Kristina, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Trang, lovely to be here.
Yeah, so for anyone listening that doesn't know, we met at college, so at VCU in Richmond, and we eventually became housemates because I know your husband first. And after hearing everything, and actually still growing up with you and still getting to know you today, I feel like you have such an epic story to tell, one with lots of pain and hardship, but I think there's a lot of messages to take away from what you have to share. So I'm just going to start off a little bit in the past with growing up. So growing up as a kid, and kids are very aware at a young age, seeing that your mom was a single mom, single parent, and also being partially raised with the grandparents, what do you think you learned or perceived during that time?
I would say living with a single mother challenged my idea of traditional gender norms for me. I say that as I saw that women can be both caretakers and breadwinners, which can lead to a more progressive understanding of gender roles and the potential for anyone, regardless of who they identify themselves as, to take on like any role in life. So I think that's something that I took away from that. And there's also this nuanced understanding of relationships that I developed. Like, not all single parent households result from divorces or separations, but in cases that do, including mine, children might develop a more, again, nuanced view of relationships. So I understood that love and relationships were complex, that they sometimes end, but that doesn't necessarily mean failure. They also, children, and myself included, I learned that it's possible to find happiness and contentment outside those norms of a two-parent household. And then just kind of appreciating the small moments. With my mom working 12-hour days, 5 or 6 times a week, you recognize that life is busier with a single income household and that there are tighter budgets. So fewer vacations, outings might not be as common, for instance. So instead, I found joy in smaller, intimate moments, whether it was like grabbing a big gulp at 7-Eleven together. Obviously, she wouldn't have one. She would spend it all on me. And those were like, what, I don't know, 99 cents back then. And, playing board games, memorizing poems together, such as like that. And I learned to appreciate the little time frame I had with my parent and just the simple pleasures I had in life. And then in terms of my grandparents, I spent a lot of time with them because my mom had a lot of work commitments. So I learned the value of a support system and really took the idea of it takes a village quite intimately and seriously.
Do you feel like you grew up too quickly?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I am an only child as well. And I didn't have many interactions with children my age. It was mostly my grandparents' friends, my mother's friends. So in a way, when I was I was supposed to be a child, I was more expected to be in line with a therapist, a friend, a companion. I think someone like my grandmother's friends used to tease and say I was my grandmother's handbag. I would just follow them wherever they went, and I absorbed all the information they shared with each other. So in that context, yeah, I grew up very quickly because I had to understand my environment.
So fast forward a bit, and your mom eventually married someone. So it's your stepdad, ex-stepdad now. And one of the reasons I remember you telling me that she did so was you were planning to go to medical school. That was like what you were thinking you were doing. And it was to have connections for success in medical field or have job opportunities afterwards. So what advice do you think you'd say to parents who are thinking this, where they might, I know some parents that I've heard where they might send their kids to an elite school or to be able to hopefully their kids become friends with other kids and then they have connections through their parents.
This podcast is not for the faint of heart. You ask some very hard hitting questions. Whoever is in this hot seat next, I do not. I feel sorry for you, but it's important. I think to approach. I think it's important to approach these decisions with a lot of introspection and awareness. So most importantly, I think you need to ask your child whether they would be comfortable with your partner. But I think more on that later. In terms of finding opportunities through marriage for your children, I think this is not new, right? We've seen this throughout history. Marriage has often been an economic and strategic institution rather than just a union based on love. So in many cultures, marriages were arranged to consolidate wealth, power, political alliances. So I would say to make an effort to recognize this, to provide kind of a broader perspective on the reasons why people choose their partners. And then a little further along with that is that you realize that most relationships involve some degree of transaction. So whether it's an emotional support, financial stability, but it might be uncomfortable to think of the benefits in that way, like benefits like job connections or career advancements are just another form of transaction. It becomes a question of which transaction society deems acceptable or taboo. And then there's that emotional cost, right? So there's that toll of being in a relationship primarily for external benefit, which can be significant. So over time, individuals might feel trapped. They might experience feeling not being authentic, or over time develop resentment because of that power dynamic. So relationships built on kind of these tangible benefits can sometimes lead to skewed power dynamics. So whether one partner feels beholden or inferior to the other because of that perceived debt they owe for those opportunities involved can be a factor. And that's something that actually gets transmitted to your children, myself included. And that's not a great feeling. So I think, as a parent considering this, you may want to think about what is success to you, for your children as well. Is it a fulfilling career? Is it a happy family life? Is it inner contentment or something else? I think kind of expanding your definition of success beyond just career milestones or financial gain, people might find a different criteria for choosing life partners, which I think is more important.
Yeah, so there was a podcast I was listening to where a divorce lawyer was talking about marriages he's seen. Obviously, he's seen the worst out of people. And he said from his experience, he thinks marriage is an outdated technology. That's how he calls it. He believes in love, but marriage itself is an outdated technology. So with your dad, stepdad, what was it growing up? Because I know that it wasn't easy. He was abusive, but obviously no one sees it, right? On the outside. If someone asked, oh, well, what'd he do? He didn't leave any physical bruises on you. Like, I don't see anything. Like, I think he's fine. He probably meant the best for you guys. What would you tell them, or what are things they don't see?
Let me take a step back here. I would say it was probably the most challenging times of my life, considering the profound emotional and psychological layers of being in that type of relationship, and growing up with a stepfather like that. I think it's evident that the decision to remarry isn't just an adult's transition from singlehood to partnership. It's this huge seismic shift in a child's universe. And that was the case for me. I think involving them in the journey with all of its nuances becomes not just considerate, but incredibly crucial. So I don't know I think the presence of a stepfather, it already signifies a huge change, right? So whether it's due a parent's death or a divorce, for a child, this can be a portal to various emotions. And that could be like, I mourned my past a lot. Things that I wish I could have done to intervene was the biggest reason why I seek therapy nowadays. Being able to adapt to the present, being resilient, and then sometimes fearing the future. Those are things that comes to mind. I think parents think of all the benefits that a child would gain from remarrying into a new family, and they need to realize that a family is much more foundational than that. When a parent decides to remarry, it's not just about introducing a new person into their life. It's about reshaping a significant portion of that child's foundational identity. There's like this implicit understanding that family dynamics will evolve, and that can really elicit feelings of insecurity or uncertainty in a child. So coming from a Filipino, household, I have so many names. And and so I have two first names. I think I have like 5 names total. And in this American culture, that's not so much the case. So I recall, when I had taken on my stepfather's last name, I was slowly losing my identity, didn't know which world I fell in between. And then when it frustrated him, with all the names that I had, he took the name that I chose the least as my first name. So suddenly I was just this completely different person, totally disconnected. And that ruined me, actually. I think that goes in part with, a child's sense of agency, while adults have the privilege of choice in their relationships. Children often don't. They don't get to choose their biological parents. They also don't get to typically get a say in who becomes their step parent, which is just sad. But I think by consulting with them, you're providing a semblance of agency in a world where they don't often feel they have little.
Did he have a temper?
Oh yeah, he had an explosive temper.
I feel like, so I've had PTSD before, more so from the workplace, and yours is from family life.
Mhm.
And I think people don't understand sometimes what it feels like to always be living in constant fear and anxiety because you are walking, it feels like you're walking on eggshells. That's the best way I could put it. Um, and if something goes wrong, something's good, might explode or you get reprimanded or whatever. It happened to me more as an adult, but I can't even imagine what it was like for you as a kid and a teenager. Um, for people that are listening and maybe they don't know what PTSD is, a lot of times they associate that with just coming home from war, but it can happen to people like you and me. What are some of the symptoms that you had for PTSD? For me, I did have a dream where it was a PTSD dream, and like my abusive boss was coming to a wedding that I was in, and then I just in the dream was shrieking. I just shrieked and I woke up, and I never have nightmares like that. And
Mhm.
looking back now, I realized, wow, that was a PTSD dream.
Wow. Yeah, it's again with these hard-hitting questions. I don't know if you caught a little bit of that, but I did dissociate a little bit. Just with the word alone, that was enough to bring me back. So that in itself is a trigger. Um, so PTSD, to the folks out there, I just want to clarify it's highly individualistic. It's a complex condition. So the anecdotes that I give or the examples that I provide is not going to be everyone's example. So while there are like hallmarks of PTSD, there are nuances and subtleties in how these symptoms manifest and are experienced by everyone. But some of them, as I pointed out, was that individual trigger. And that can be very strong for me. So what might serve as a trigger for one person might not be for another. It could be super mundane things like words, smells, um, sounds, or even the time of day, or even certain holidays. Um, when you start associating things with those, suddenly those triggers expand. So if it's something like Thanksgiving, suddenly it's pumpkin spice. How horrible would that be, right? Um, you avoid those subtleties, and it's not just staying away from specific places or people. It can manifest by your reluctance to watch certain TV shows, to listen to certain music, or engage in activities that might bring up those traumatic memories, even directly. So for me, it was a lot about sound. If I heard a door banging and slamming, it has to be a specific type of door too. If I heard it, and screaming too, I would have nightmares so vivid that I would wake up and think that something had happened to my mother. So I would go up and investigate, and see, thinking that this little girl could prevent something, you know. Um, so there is also a sense that I try to emotionally numb myself with these heightened emotions. Sometimes there's a lack of emotional regularity. So I may have outbursts that may seem random to others or don't make sense. Um, some people with PTSD may struggle with certain emotions that you just can't see. And And then, there could be like physical sensations too. They could be flashbacks, or when encountering a trigger. Some people might have those sensations. They could have like weird tastes in their mouth. I've heard tingling sensations, a specific type of pain. And something that I discussed earlier, I had dissociated just for that little bit, just feeling detached from your surroundings. And I've had friends who say, I still can't wrap my head around what that is. So it's difficult for people to understand that feeling. But it's very textbook sounding and it's not very helpful, but it's almost like the subtle, fleeting, sometimes it speeds up, it slows down, in an out of body experience, and you lose a lot of time. And that was actually the case for me when I decided to seek help. I had dissociated so severely that I was at a table much like this, and just wrapped up a call with my husband, then was just my boyfriend. But after we had hung up, I had just stayed at the table and completely blanked out for until this day. I don't know how long. It could have been 30 minutes, it could have been 2 hours, but I thought he was physically with me when I came back to, and I said, where did he go? I was starting to panic. I called him and I said, where are you? And he said, I'm back at home. And that's when I knew that there's something really wrong. And I said, well, what was the time that was elapsed between, you and I, and since our last talk? And, he mentioned, I think it was like 30 or 40 minutes, maybe less than that, but it felt like an eternity to me. So yeah, I mean, there's that. You could be very hyper vigilant, and startled very easily, as it is for me. But there's just so many issues, like memory issues, for instance. It's not only about like forgetting the trauma. Some might have difficulties with like short-term memory, as I do. I struggle to recall names, dates, other details related to the trauma. This is my service dog, and he was just like, I
Oh,
think
hi,
you're in
Cody.
trouble.
Oh,
Yeah. So he came by to say hello and said
he knew.
something about like the pitch of my voice, and that maybe there's a trouble there, that he's like, this is not right, so let me go check her out. So good boy. But I mean, there's other things too. People experience chronic pain. GI issues is really common. And yeah, other things related to PTSD. But I think that another one that people don't really discuss much is the difficulties in intimacy. So those can like manifest during, being touched or being comforted in a way. Might be triggering for some, but there's so many things involved with the symptoms of PTSD that people just aren't aware of. And if they do, I would hope that they spread the news and and kind of educate others.
Are you okay? Do you need a moment?
I think I'm okay.
Sorry.
Thanks for asking, though. That was very courteous of you.
Of course. What am I gonna be like? Oh, this person's be like, keep going. What did you wish you could change? And also, how have you come to that conclusion of realizing that you, as a child, probably couldn't have done anything back then?
Oh my gosh. I mean, oof.
And I think about like how when we're kids, like, yeah, looking back, there's things I think all of us would like to change. But if you look at an 8-year-old kid, you're like, that's not your job, but you were so aware at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I guess in a way, sometimes it feels like a regret that kind of weighs you down as an adult sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, There are certain things I wish I could have done. That now I realize I couldn't help it. Like, imagine an 8-year-old version of yourself going up against, I don't know, a 40-year-old man. Like, no, that's, or a 50-year-old man. Like, that's never gonna happen. And I think therapy has left a lot of good for me. And yeah, just seeking that support from them, and getting, to be honest with you, I'm not ashamed to say it. I I sought medication for my anxiety. I was put on medications for my night terrors, um, for my depression, and all those diagnoses that I had related to PTSD. So all in all, initially, at least the gold standard, as it was a couple of years ago, was to see a physician, a professional for psychiatry, and to get medicated. Those were the combination. And so I would see a professional 3 times a week for months and months. I mean, that is not something that is accessible to everyone. Thinking back, things that I wish I could say or do to my younger self. I don't know, I'm like 8 years old, maybe 8, 9, 10. Um, it's so tough. You don't know what is available to you at that time. Might say, like, hey there, when you fall and scrape your knee, you run to someone for a band-aid. Well, sometimes our feelings get hurt, and it's okay to run to someone trustworthy to talk about it. That might help you feel better. How do we say, like, maybe imagine if everyone in the world wore invisible backpacks. Inside, some kids might have toys, others might have heavy stones. So everyone has their own challenges. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. And you're not the only one carrying heavy things. So maybe by voicing yourself, you might find some companionship there. It's going to be a hard one too. Maybe more as you get older, this be relevant, but limiting your exposure, perhaps. This is something that I didn't even adopt until much later in life, because I didn't know that was an option. But if I were younger, I would say, when it's really sunny, you might wear sunglasses or a hat. It's kind of like that with people who might be hurting your feelings. If you can, it's okay to step away or protect yourself, like how sunglasses protect your eyes. I would say also, develop some kind of coping strategy. When you're upset, you might hug a teddy bear, right? So there are many teddy bears for our feelings. Some people like drawing, listening to music, or taking deep breaths. You can find your special teddy bear that makes you feel better that way. And then focusing on what you can control. Imagine you're playing a video game and one level is just too hard. Sometimes we can't change the game. But we can change how we play. Life's a lot like that too. So we might not be able to control everything, but we can always decide how we react to it. And then, oh boy, I would say, try to educate yourself. When you're curious about something like dinosaurs or space, you learn about it, right? Sometimes learning about what's bothering us can make it less scary. So if something's making you sad or scared, learn about it. And then look forward, don't look back. Imagine you're walking forward, but you're only looking backward, you might trip, right? So it's not the same with our thoughts. It's good to remember, it's the same with our thoughts. It's good to remember, but it's also important to see where you're going. And then this is what I struggled with the most, was like your self-worth. So, like, how you're special, right? Even if someone took away all your toys, you'd still be special. It's the same thing with how we feel. No matter what, always remember you're special and worthy, and just by being you. Yeah.
I love your analogies. They're so good. And helps people understand more. And thank you for even sharing about seeking help, professional help and medication, because you never know, someone might be listening in. And, especially when there's a lot of stigma about medication. And so people don't realize like your world can change for the better if you seek that help, even though maybe your family and friends might frown upon it. I did
Mhm.
go on medication too back then when I was working at Disney, you know, because I needed to in order to, I guess at that point, survive. But anyways, I'm going to shift over to you going to medical school because you went to the Philippines for medical school. And I think I got a little glimpse when you were sharing with me what the dynamics are. Obviously, a lot of people know that medical school is hard, but they don't realize that it's super competitive. It's normal for people to throw each other under the bus, things like that. So you go through medical school and you graduate, but then you decide to not pursue residency. You decide to change your career path. So obviously, years of learning, years of, I think people might be thinking, what? That's a lot of time, money, energy spent. And then now you're going to change your mind. Um, how did that come about and what fears came with that decision?
Boy, another good question. I'd say that leading up to this question, you're definitely right. There's things about medical school that are hard to untie from my identity and how it helped shape who I am today. Um, that experience was like a race at best. It, standardized evaluations, rote memorization was really prioritized over creativity, and creativity, like creative thinking. So um, if everyone is trying to match a single ideal, creativity can be suppressed in favor of conformity. There was a lot of chronic stress and anxiety that also affected me. When your primary focus is on survival and keeping up with demands, any other pursuits outside of medicine may seem like an unnecessary luxury. And that included having a relationship too, which is one of the reasons why I thought about pivoting. And I think another one was, I hate to say it, but I had negative experiences in medical school, and it led to my lack of motivation and fear of expressing myself. I never felt like I was myself in that field. And I don't know, I just felt drained. There was constant ethical navigations that I had to go through, and my mental bandwidth just wasn't there anymore. Yeah, just the sheer amount of materials to study for just monopolizes your time. It leaves you little room to engage with anything, whether it was like new technologies or being creative, like right out of the box. So one of the surprising things like I got out of it was like, wow, I feel like my coherence went down, my creativity went down, my engagement with technology went down. Everything was just so consumed with medicine. And then, yeah, managing your personal relationships on top of that schedule was relegated to the back burner. So, yeah,
It sounds like everything just strained.
it
Big
was
time.
strange. And that this is just my perspective. This is not everyone, there are other people who will find other reasons, or they might not have the same experiences as I have. But for me, I think my heart wasn't in it. Even though I was great at it, I had received honors in my clinicals here in the US. I had attended a really prestigious institution up in Massachusetts. And just overall, I thought was a very good clinical student. And I think it would have been the easiest path for me to continue with residency. It was basically handed to me on a platter. And for some context, a lot of my family members are in medicine. Obviously, most of my friends are in medicine as well. And to see how myopic it can be in terms of engagement with the outside world, you don't realize that there's other industries out there. You don't see that the world does not revolve around medicine. And you often think that for your significant other who is not in medicine, they're relegated to cooking, cleaning, doing everything for you because you just don't have the emotional energy to. And if you do, props to you. You are an amazing person. You are just, to be in it, to be empathetic, to make sure that your patients get the best care and be able to juggle a family life is just, and your own interests is just a huge achievement. So I don't want to take that away from anybody else. But in terms of my own limitations, I knew that I couldn't offer that to my patients. And for me, I need to give them the best. And that also includes giving my partner the best version of myself. And I couldn't be that around that environment. So I wanted to see him. I don't want him cooking for me. I want to cook together. I want to experience life together. I think ultimately that was the decision why I chose to pivot, and not to say that, medicine didn't serve me any purpose at all. It served me great. I still use the information that I learned until today. I'm in consulting, haha, but mostly for emerging technologies, digital health, and informatics. I'm also pursuing a master's in health information management and technology. So with all that education and training, I have an incredible lifestyle. I'm happy where I am at. I get to play with gadgets all day and think of what's the next, big thing. I get to use my creativity, something that I really valued from the start, something that diminished when I had entered medical school. So with all these things combined, I find myself thriving instead of worrying about how can I be certain things to certain people. I am my own person now. And I'm loving this version of myself.
Yeah. So going from medical school to now technology or medical technology, what advice would you give to someone that is considering a major career change, especially if they've invested so much time, effort, and money already into their original profession?
Do it. I would say find a mentor. I would say get into everything that you can and figure if something sticks. So a little context for everyone listening. I had decided I didn't want to go to residency. I think the writing was on the wall because my family, who had put all their hopes and dreams in me, kind of has backed off, and they're like, okay, I think we see that's not good for her mental health, so let's prioritize her happiness. But at the end of that, it is her responsibility to find a means of supporting herself financially. And I think that was both a gift And I mean, a challenging opportunity for me, because for the first time, and to a lot of you folks, I'm Asian, so not having any freedom for like the first 3 decades, and then suddenly being told, pursue whatever you want. I mean, the first phase was like, oh my gosh, I can do whatever I want to do. I could be who I want to be. This is amazing. And then the second phase was like, oh my gosh, there's so many things. I'm getting overwhelmed. I don't know who's willing to pay for my specialized skills. There were so many concerns over, whether someone was willing to pay for my degree and what I could put forward. And, you can be overskilled or yeah, it's just, it was difficult to navigate around. So the first 6 months of trying to find a job was incredibly challenging. I think I had gained like 30 pounds from depression. With each passing, decline letter, I just thought, I'm worthless. No one wants me. I have this great degree. I went to, I've completed amazing clerkships. I have done research. I have so many skills to offer, yet no one wants to bite. And at a certain point, my back was like against the wall, and I thought, I have to do something. I can't, like, I chose this life. This is me now. And that kind of was like the beauty of it too, because I was never given that opportunity to fight for myself. And so everything that I have put up until this point was because of me. So what happened was, I said, I just have to throw everything against the wall and see if it sticks. I decided to do a master's. I ended up doing internships at, I don't want to name them. And I had incredible experiences and just hoped that something would interest me enough. I attended so many conferences, spoke to so many people. And so that would be my advice for those who are looking to pivot from, I think, any industry, I think is applicable, is just do everything you can, expose yourself, be vulnerable, find anything that remotely interests you, even though if you think, oh my gosh, what did I get into? This is not what I expected. Just keep at it. And eventually those interests and those opportunities will funnel down into what your final form would be. And someone out there, as it related to me in this instance, they found my worth. And that was probably, I don't know, one of my greatest memories, is just knowing that someone out there saw my value and this is what I could put forward. And honestly, it might not even have to be with you. It might be funding resources. It's on a cyclical basis throughout the year. So it might just not have been the right timing. And suddenly they find you and they're like, hey, we need to grab her up. We need to grab him up. So just keep pushing at it. Don't lose hope. Take a shower, get out of bed, brush your teeth, apply to one job or research something, anything. I think the more knowledge that you gain, the more opportunities present to you, the more you get lucky. So I think those would be, that would be my advice for folks who are straddling this challenges I had not too long ago.
Yeah, that sounds so, I guess the word I'm thinking is empowerment. And I think that's kind of like the luck of the draw sometimes in life, right? When we choose to go in our own path, whether it be in relationships, career, any of that kind of stuff. The challenges is that it's going to be our own blood, sweat, and tears that make what we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it is also our choice, and it wasn't dictated by someone else or some transaction or some ulterior motive. So,
I would also want to say, I think you just never know what you're gonna get, but the most success I ever got was just randomly emailing people. Um, whether they were like in a PMO office or some internship, I would just email them and ask them like, hey, this is what I have to offer. This is what I'm pursuing. Is there any way that I could help you get where you need to land? And I think like 100% of the time they offered me something, which was so surprising, right? But I think the key there is that you can't just ask from them. You need to provide some kind of value to them as well. So if you do that, I think you're in good shape. In a good shape.
In a good shit.
Oh yeah, those are good too. Don't forget to do those at least once a day.
Oh, this whole entire journey of going through family life and then making a major career shift. There's a lot that happened in these like 3.5 decades for you. What has your personal healing journey look like from, let's say, like college to medical school to today? Or even like what has helped you? Because, sometimes people are asking like, some people might wonder what has helped you on your healing journey.
Okay. So I would say the most important thing for me was having a partner that will battle for you, to set boundaries for anybody else who wants to come in and mess up your life. Someone who isn't afraid to get dirty and who will love you unconditionally, I think has been the biggest factor in my healing journey. I felt like my husband was an advocate for everything that I did. And he was also stern in saying like, don't talk to yourself that way. Don't be negative. Don't be toxic to yourself. That's not you. The person that I know is smart, intelligent, beautiful, and all the adjectives that that he ever has. But yeah, being with a partner who will advocate and fight for you till his dying days, I think, is the most important factor that healed me. Some people, I think, it's harder for, or not. Let me rephrase this. Some people don't need anybody, and that's completely fine too. So find what helps you set your boundaries. For me, I couldn't do it for myself because I was just too frightened. I was too scared of the repercussions. But having someone facilitate that for me, and then along the way, learning how to do it for myself was an amazing experience. So you always have something to learn.
Wow. Thank you for sharing everything through and being so vulnerable today to everyone.
That was
And
it.
just sharing
That's
your
it.
journey. Yeah, that's it.
Oh my gosh, dude, you're
It's
rough.
Oh, it's so funny. Oh my God. Is this like worse than job interviews, I guess?
Oh hell yeah.
I guess because
Oh,
people have
did I
scripts
tell
for
you
job
that?
interviews. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, did I tell you that a story that I had? I was marrying Sean down the aisle, and right before I went down to walk towards him, my uncle turns around to me because he's the one walking me down, and he says, "How do you feel? You feel good?" And I said, "Hell yeah." Right in front of like the directors of the church and like the wedding coordinators. I was just like, "Oh, I was so sorry."
What's recent? A recent dream?
Huh?
Was this like a recent dream?
Oh, this was not a dream. This is reality. It happened on my wedding day.
Oh, okay, 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 okay. Got it. Oh, it's too funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think, I mean, having a partner is like a major I was talking to someone, a friend, where I was like, the two things that suck up the most time in your life, but you spend the most time is your workplace and your partner. And those are two that would benefit if you get it right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Get it right on the money.
Yep. Yeah.
I love being on your podcasts. I get
Including the
invited
hard
to them.
question.
I think I love your hard questions. I'm just surprised that I could even answer them on the spot. But yeah, I enjoyed talking with you. I know we'll be seeing each other soon, and can't wait till those 6 a.m. discussions we have. Not waking up,
That's right.
continuing until like overnight.
That's right. Christy and I were housemates, so there was a lot of deep talks, and I just back then I still asked questions. Maybe they weren't as difficult as these or as reflective as these, I guess, because we were only like 22 years old.
I think, you know what? I think they were always reflective, Trang. The difference is that we've had more experiences now that just have been more challenging, more introspective, that requires a lot more healing.
Yeah.
But they have always been great questions.
Oh, thanks.
You're natural at this.
Oh, thank you. I think that, yeah, I think growing in your 20s and 30s, there's just a lot more messiness of being a human that happens. And it's so complicated, intricate, and dealing more with, I think, just realizing who we are, growing into our own selves, like starting to question things and what we were taught, questioning family, questioning our belief systems or religious belief systems if you're raised with that. And then dealing with a lot of loss, like death or like job loss, things like that. So, or for some people, divorces where they have to question everything, and look at love in a different way. So yeah, I guess, yeah, you're right. When you're 22, you don't have as much to talk about compared to when you get older. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks for being on the show, Ugly. Christy and I,
yeah.
not that we call each other. It just started with her calling me ugly.
No. You made me sound like an awful person. It was out of jest. Oh,
you
my
ugly.
gosh.
That's what we call each other. You ugly.
Trang is the most beautiful person I have ever met inside and out. And honestly, an incredibly unique person that is in my life. So I'm always thankful to have her and speak with her. So now
Thankful to have you as a friend. For real.
Thank you. I feel like the other shoe is gonna drop and you're gonna say something completely nasty. And like my feet are sweating, my palms are sweating.
Nope. That's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap for today's episode, my friend. I hope you enjoyed getting to know a dear friend of mine and seeing how empowering your life can be once you choose a path on your own terms. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button, that subscribe button right now so you don't miss out on any episodes coming up. And I'd really be grateful if you left me a review over at Apple too. These reviews help other people find my podcast. And remember, the fun does not stop here. It continues over at thehappyhealingshop.com, where we keep the conversations going, and you'll find tons of resources to help you and support you on your spiritual journey. Until we meet again, my friend, always remember to shine your light brightly and to share your story, because you'll never know who it can help or inspire to create a change in their own world. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.